thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Super excited to hear your story. Our podcast is about your journey in music and forming Dead Poet Society and how you guys got to where you are now.
I'm excited. Let's do
Cool.
it.
So the band formed in LA. We're from Southern California. I'm in Southern California. Are you in LA right now? Are you from there?
We are in LA. Yeah. The band actually formed in Boston, Massachusetts, though.
Oh.
While we were in college. Yeah.
I got some wrong information then.
Oh, no. All good, dude.
No, cool. So are you from Boston then?
Well, I mean, like I was born there, but I was more so raised in Virginia. And then I moved back to Boston when I was 18 for college. And then lived there until I was like 23 before we moved out to LA.
Okay, right on. All right.
Yeah.
So mainly raised in Virginia, you said. Born in Boston, but you bailed pretty soon?
Yeah, I was 6 when we moved to Virginia.
Okay.
And so I pretty much spent the formative years of my life in Virginia. Little
Right
place
on.
called Hampton, Virginia, a little shithole piece of town, you know, but it is what it is.
In the town, was there places to catch music? How did you get into music?
So there's a couple venues. The main one I think in the Hampton Roads area is in Norfolk called the Norva.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty famous rock venue, but when I went to shows, that's usually where you would go. Or the Virginia Amphitheater. I saw John Mayer there in like 2014.
Dope.
Yeah.
Rad.
Yeah, it was cool. It was.
Nice. Well, how did you get into music? Were your family, parents musical?
Well, I would say, you know, my mom could sing and my dad can hold a tune as well. But to say they were musical, I don't really know. I mean, like I was raised on kind of a very narrow spectrum of music. Like I don't feel like I was raised like most people in my generation on like classic rock and whatnot.
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm. The music that my parents always went to when I was little was my dad listened to a lot of Chet Baker, an old jazz musician.
Yeah, I know who Chet Baker is.
Yeah. And my mom listened to a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Okay.
And my dad listened to a lot of Irish drinking songs. So
a little mixture there.
Exactly. So naturally I came to rock, right?
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
What was the first instrument you learned? Were you in piano lessons as a kid or pick up guitar?
I was in piano lessons like every kid starts. And I absolutely fucking hated it.
Like every kid.
Oh yeah. I never practiced. I would get super bad anxiety whenever the piano teacher would come and I just pretend like I was looking at it. Like looking back on it, I thought she was so angry at me, but I mean, I was like 8 years old, so she probably didn't give a shit, but
right. You were probably just like every other 8-year-old that walked in there. And
yeah, exactly. It's just like,
haven't played since the last time you were in there.
Yeah, exactly. That was my motto, dude. It was just like the instant she left, I didn't think about piano until she came back.
Right.
And, yeah. So I begged my mom for like 2 years to let me quit that. And I just remember sitting on the back porch, just being like, she was in the other room and I was just like, Mom, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this. Don't make me go in there. She was like, okay. And then right after I quit piano lessons, I immediately was like, can I get a guitar? And she was like, no.
Oh,
and
really?
And I had to beg her for a long time. And then eventually we rented one, this like Yamaha acoustic from this little place called Music and Art Center in Newport News. And I started going to lessons and I just became obsessed with it. And yeah.
From
So
there
that's kind
on
of
out. Yeah, that's kind of
there on out.
Okay. That's incredible. So but I'm intrigued that she wouldn't let you just pick up the guitar. She just the piano. It was either piano or nothing right away.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think she was more apprehensive because I quit. Yeah. I was like, I'm not spending money on another instrument for you to just quit it again. And and then I was like, well, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Right.
I'm going to dedicate my whole life to this.
Right. I will never put this thing down.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, I did read, maybe I'm getting confused, that the band kind of formed around a guitar, like a 7-string guitar. Is this something that, or am I getting totally confused?
No. You're I think our sound kind of sprang from this one guitar that Jack had from high school. He and our
Oh,
original
okay.
bassist in high school took this 7-string Schecter that he had, and they ripped off the frets.
You're right.
And
Okay.
so they ripped off the frets and then immediately decided they had just broken the instrument, and because they had,
Yeah.
and they set it down for years. And then Jack one time brought it up to college and was like, "Yeah, you gotta check this thing out. It has kind of like crazy sounds." And I was like, "Okay, yeah." And he started playing with it. I was like, "Whoa, that's fucking strange."
Uh-huh.
And we ended up incorporating it into the band, and ever since then it's just been a massive part of our writing process and sound, and it just offers so much diversity in like the things we can write, because you can't do anything conventional with it, so you're forced to play it in a different way, so naturally it sounds different, you know.
And nobody can replicate it because it's just this guitar that not only is it you guys ripped all the frets off it, but it's a 7-string guitar, which is strange in itself,
Yeah, it's
right?
bizarre, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
When I read that, I'm like, did I read this right? Okay, 7, because
7-string fretless guitar.
that is okay. And that's still used to this day, even on the debut record.
Yeah, on the debut. I mean, it is a massive part of our sound. The first song we ever wrote with it was a song called "Low Air,"
Mm-hmm.
and after once we wrote the kind of like hook for that, or instrumental hook for that, we were just like, "This is fucking insane! Like, what else can we do with this thing?"
Right.
And we've written songs without it, of course,
Mm.
but we always are drawn back to it because we can just create this. Really, the new album has a lot of it, especially.
Okay.
It's coming out in February, and we just dove as deep as we could into what you could do with that thing, and it's
I'm
pretty cool.
excited to hear it. Well,
I'm
we'll get to the
excited.
guitar, but going back, so the Yamaha that you guys rented wasn't that and different Jack in the band. I remember it was Jack, so I was like, oh, maybe it's something to do with
Two
this
Jacks.
guitar, but it's the other Jack. Okay.
It's
So
always been confusing.
it's all good, man. All right, so you get the Yamaha acoustic guitar, you rent it. Eventually, you get a guitar, so you prove that you were gonna play
That
it.
I was up to this, yeah,
Yeah.
and shortly after getting the guitar, my dad bought me this Bob Dylan's Essentials book from like
Mm-hmm.
PBS when they would do the Essentials albums, and you can sell
Yeah,
them
yeah,
back when like Starbucks sold music and stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
So he got me this Essentials album, and then he got me the corresponding guitar chord
Chord
book.
book.
Yeah,
Okay.
to go along with it. And I think that's really where my initial um inspiration to start writing, or my fascination with writing, came from, because I just learned every single song in that book, and I just became obsessed with the lyricism and the melody writing in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really where it all started for me personally as a songwriter, was just obsessing over Bob Dylan. And then as I got older, as I said, I had a really narrow range of music growing up. I didn't listen to a lot beyond what my parents had. So as I, started to get towards being a teenager, I naturally rebelled and started listening to a bunch of other stuff. And
Right.
that's when I kind of started to discover classic rock and metal and like punk rock and stuff like that. And and it really took my interest. But I mean, I guess I'd always had like a fascination with the genre of rock. I mean, I think most kids or most guys are like they see rock stars and they're just like, yeah, I want to fucking be them. I want to be
Right.
badass and everything, And so I think I just was naturally drawn to that, just being a boy, and like yeah. So
Yeah, totally. Well,
yeah.
that's interesting. So with the Bob Dylan book, though, I mean that's kind of rooted in the rock world. I mean, later down the line, at least for Dylan.
I mean, a lot of famous musicians covered his music in rock.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, so was your dad like a huge fan of Bob Dylan? Why did he choose that particular artist to give you the book of, or were you a fan of his?
I don't really know. I mean, I hadn't heard of him before my dad gave me the book. I was probably like 12, 13 years old. And like, and he was just, I don't know if he was a huge Bob Dylan fan or not, but that was never really clear to me. I think
Mm-hmm.
that in his mind, being not a musician, he was like, well, I should introduce him to like some of the great songwriters on acoustic guitars. And that was his solution, was giving me that
Yeah.
book. And I'm glad he did, because I mean, here I am now.
Yeah, he could have given you a worse book. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
to
right.
get Dylan, that's pretty good, pretty good bet. I mean, that's rad. So you pick up this book, you start playing, and then you said later is when you kind of got into punk rock and stuff. But you must have been a really good guitar player up
No,
with the other kids in
I'm
your high
dog
school.
shit at guitar, dude.
But
I'm
if you're
dog shit.
playing Dylan songs as like what, a middle school kid,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean
I
that's
will
pretty
say this.
impressive.
I will say that the only thing I'm pretty decent at guitar is finger picking. And that's not because of Bob Dylan or because of any sort of particular fascination with finger picking. I think it mostly came from the fact that I just lost picks like it was my day job. And so I never had a pick to play guitar, but I wanted to play guitar. So I just always finger picked. And so a lot of our music has quite a bit of finger picking in it.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's a skill in itself. I mean, I could play guitar terribly, but there's no way I could do finger picking.
Same, dude.
And there's a lot of people that can't. You're these great guitar players that can't.
They can't
Yeah,
finger pick. I mean,
finger
yeah,
pick.
it is kind of the opposite for me though, because I'm horrible with a pick. I can't do anything like cool, or like I can't shred or anything like that. But you know, I can finger pick pretty well.
Sure. Okay. So, okay, well, tell me about starting. Were you in bands in high school?
I was in a band in high school.
A band in high school.
Yeah. When I got into high school, I became pretty interested in John Mayer, as I think any guitarist my age did. It was just like, he was like the guitar god, you know, like he was like this dude that was like mainstream pop, but he could also shred, and he actually made it, you know, like cool again. And so we were like, so I was just drawn to him. And so I was really all through high school, really all the way up until I joined Dead Poet Society. I never wrote rock or played rock. I just wrote this kind of like John Mayer-esque, Jack Johnson like music.
Oh, interesting.
And that turned into me being in a band that had the worst band name on earth ever. It was like it was so egocentric of me. I called it the Jack DeWitt Band, and I forced 3 other kids that I knew that played instruments into just playing what I told them to play. And it must have been a miserable experience for them. In fact, one of the keyboard player went on to work as an engineer for Apple. And he reached out to me like a year or 2 ago, and we were talking a little bit, and he was like, yeah, I told one of my coworkers about our band in high school. And I was like, oh, Jesus, dude. I was like, I'm sorry I ever put you through that. And he laughed. He was like, it's okay. You're good.
That's funny. So the high school band was basically you were doing everything and kind of teaching them how to play the songs.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, I kept the band for 1 year when I went to Berkeley, and I came back because playing with Dead Poet Society just taught me so much about playing with each other and not just focusing on you, but how you connect as a unit, and how when you're playing in a band, it shouldn't sound like 4 musicians, 5 musicians, however many musicians you have in your band, it should sound like one thing. And so when I came back, I offered like a little bit more freedom for them, but then ultimately I was like, no, I want to be in Dead Poet Society. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it initially taught me that, like, being in that band, that it was like, well, you have 3 other people in the band, and you can't just demand that they do exactly what you say.
Obey.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. Well, I didn't. Oh, so you went to Berkeley School of Music.
Yes.
You left that out. Okay. You're like, yeah, I went to college in Berkeley, and I didn't put together that you went to like the prestige like music school.
It's not that prestigious. It's a fucking joke.
How did you get in though? That must have been a pretty gnarly process.
I don't fucking know. I don't even know, dude. I don't know how
I've talked to plenty of people that have gotten into Berkeley School of Music, and all of them have told me about this gnarly like process to getting. You have to be able to sight read on the spot. Like, I want to hear your how you got into the school. I'm sure you
dude, I honestly probably got into the schools because they were trying to expand their profit margins. Let's be honest. I went and did like an audition, and I had to play like a guitar. Like, I had to play this like piece. I can't even remember what I played. I think it was something I wrote. But then I had to do some sight reading and then some theory stuff, and I didn't know anything about theory. I knew absolutely nothing about theory. Didn't understand it, couldn't wrap my head around it.
Mhm.
And I honestly, the audition went so fucking poorly that by the end of it, the last question I think they asked me was like, is this note higher than this note? Like, that's how like bad I was doing. So I got
like,
out
we'll
of the
just throw this
audition.
kid a bone.
Yeah, exactly. I got out of the audition, and I was just like, well, that went terribly. And they accepted me into the spring semester. And I actually ended up going in the fall because they called me 2 weeks before school started, and they were like, hey, we have room for you if you can get up here
Mhm.
and find housing, you're good to go. And we don't have any room left in the dorm, so good luck. And then that was it.
You can come in, but we have no room for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Well, what'd you go into the school as? A guitar player or
I went in as a
vocal?
guitar player, yeah. And because of the sort of ego that I think a lot of guitar players have, is that, like, you never wanted to admit that you sang. You were a guitar player first before you sang, because singers didn't have any real talent or anything like that.
Really?
I
Okay.
I feel like that's a common mindset amongst musicians. And like and and yeah, I switched because halfway through school, I was taking this guitar blues lab, which is basically like 12 guys with guitars sitting in a circle in a classroom, all playing solos, which is honestly one of the most nightmarish things you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I was sitting at the end of the line one day, and I was watching everybody take a solo over this like blues thing, and I was just watching it go down the line, and it was coming towards me, and then it was the guy before me, and I was sitting there, and it just hit me. I was like, I fucking suck at this instrument. Why am I doing this? And so immediately after that class, I went right down to your principal's, the office for, having your principal.
Administrative or whatever.
Yeah, administrative. And I switched over to singing right there on the spot. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Did you attempt the solo, or you saw it coming and you're like, no?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I struggled all the way through it while 11 other dudes my age judged the shit out of me.
Oh man. I always figured like that school must be really difficult to like, get out and play like a coffee shop or something like that. Cause I feel like everyone around you knows, like they know if you screw up, they know if that chord progression shouldn't go together. Like you're being critiqued on a whole nother level.
Yeah, and it's complete bullshit. It's so unnecessary, but there's this weird mentality is like you were the best in your little tiny town, wherever that was in America or across the world. And then you get here, and then you're with all the other people that were the best in their tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. And so you get this insecurity of like, oh, fuck, I have to be the best because everybody around me, I'm trying to make it and everyone's trying to make it. And so you develop this like false sense of competition that just really had plagued my entire existence at Berklee. I think that's why I loved playing with Dead Poet Society so much, is because it was just like I could escape from this like constant judgment of other musicians around you just critiquing what you do, like that's not good enough, and then they go up there and play their fucking shitty song so yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
Oh no, yeah. So yeah, and you said you switched to vocal major.
Yeah, I switched to vocal major, and I took lessons with a woman named Janie Barnett, and she was incredible. I think the main reason I think one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to switch to vocals was because we had started touring, and I quickly realized that the music I sing is kind of difficult for me to sing. So I was like, how am I going to start doing this like every single night? Like I need to figure out how to like make my voice last longer, and especially like talking to people after shows and in loud bars. And she helped me a lot with that. She was awesome.
That's cool. And when did you start, or when did you join Dead Poet Society? Were they already a band and then you joined because you're the vocalist for the band?
Yeah.
Were you guys called Dead Poet Society, or were they called that at the time? Like how did that?
So they were called Dead Poet Society, and they were around before me, and they were considered one of the worst bands at Berklee. like to the point where there were like memes made about them, about how bad they were.
Wow.
And they were so bad that one of my best friends drummed for them for like a year. And he left the band because I convinced him to leave the band. I was like, I hadn't joined the band. I wasn't even considering being in it, but I was just looking at Lynn. I was like, dude, they suck. You need to get out of there. You need to get out of that fucking band.
So you had seen them, or you just had heard what everybody else was saying?
Well, they had a cover of which is no longer on the internet, but they did a cover of Pumped Up Kicks, which went around the school, and it was
that kind of set the tone.
It was like Tim and Eric bad. It was so fucking funny, and that I think that's what drove my conversation to sit down Landon in a burrito shop outside of Berkeley and be like, dude, like I care about you. You got to get out of this band. He left the band, and then 6 months later, I joined the band. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
So they were like you said the worst band at the school. But then obviously that turned around, and you guys
all because of me. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you've achieved quite a bit, obviously. I mean, you're doing what everybody else that's going to school there probably would. I mean, isn't that the end goal?
Yeah, I think it is the end goal.
Be in a band and do this for a living, or whether it's that, or you're in an orchestra pit or whatever, but being paid or to play music and do this as a living. That's kind of the.
Yeah, I think we're very fortunate that we've made it to the point that we're at. I think it was it was the fact that, like all of us wanted to be, wanted to write music that we loved. And the fact that the four of us found each other, I think was 1 in 1,000 chance. And it's really the four of us together that make up this band. And I don't think this band would exist unless we were in it together. So yeah, because I think we bring out the best in each other for as far as writing goes. Yeah, not as far as discussions go.
Well, when you joined, like, how did that conversation go? Did they say, hey, we know you're a vocalist, you're a singer, like, are you interested? Like, how did they convince you to join their band after you heard the Pumped Up Kicks cover song?
I was a friend of Jack's roommate, a guy named Peter Chun, and I used to hang out with him, and Jack happened to hear me sing one day, and he thought I was like some sort of fucking bro douchebag, and he didn't want anything to do with me, but he heard me sing, and he was like, hey, I have a couple of these songs, like, do you mind like singing on them for us, just for like a demo thing? And I really did not want to, but I was trying to be polite. So I was like, yeah, man. Yeah, let's do it.
Sure.
And yeah, exactly. And I sang on the songs, and then I kind of ghosted them, and I was trying to avoid being around them. And they were like, come write with us, come hang with us, come, just like, come see what it's like, And I was like, no, I'm good. And then somehow our original bassist, Nick, knew where I lived, and showed up on my doorstep one day and was just like, yo, let's write. I was like, what are you doing here? And he was like, come on, like, are you doing anything? I was like, no. And he was like, okay, cool, let's write then. I was like, oh God. So I invited him up, and we sat down. He showed me this riff, and he was like, let's write something out of it. And I was like, okay. So we kind of like looked up something to write about, and just decided on a random like historical topic, and we wrote a couple verses, and I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. And then took it to the rest of the band, and we wrote a chorus to it, and I was like, oh, this is actually kind of sick. Like I like this, like we're coming up with something cool here. And my roommates at the time, this was probably like 6 months later, were Peter and this guy named Niles Brandon, really good friends of mine. And they were like, dude, you don't want to join that band. Like, they fucking suck. Like, you don't want to be. And I was like, I don't know. There's something here, dude. And so thankfully I made that decision to stick with them and become a part of the band, because like, here we are now.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Okay. And so they were already kind of doing something, or were they playing out much? Like, or was it basically the Pumped Up Kicks was kind of how they got the name for themselves around the school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what it was. And I mean, they played out a few shows, but I mean, Like we really didn't start touring till I was in the band for like almost a year, I think.
Oh,
It was
really?
it was
Okay.
a good long while. No, was it? No, 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 no. I joined the band and we started touring like quickly after that. But it wasn't like any big tours or anything like that. We just strung together a couple shows in small towns across the East Coast and
Mhm.
just started to get our feet wet.
And was like at that point, were you playing any songs that they had prior to you joining, or
Yeah,
did you guys start over?
we played a couple songs prior to me joining, and then we had also written like 4 songs together by that point. And one of the songs, the song that I actually joined the band because of that I would mentioned before with Nick is called 145, and that was the first song we ever released together. But we had these songs before we ever recorded them, so I think we just toured those.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
then the songs they had written, yeah.
All right. And because yeah, Weapons was the first EP you guys put out,
Yeah.
and was that
Yeah.
just self-released? And
Yep, we just put it out there.
where'd you record it? Were you able to get into a studio at the school?
There's a independent studio down the street called the Record Company over in
Uh-huh.
South Boston, and it's like this it's this really interesting studio that since they had really close ties to Berkeley, and so what they would let you do is that you could come rent out the space and you could bring your own engineer. So they didn't have an in-house engineer. And so you basically got to rent out this entire studio and just chill in it alone for like 24 hours or however long you rented it for. And it was super cheap because they did a lot of like government, like charity programs and stuff like
Oh,
that for like
sure.
underprivileged kids. So they were able to make the prices like super affordable for students. And that's where we recorded pretty much everything until we left Boston.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
that makes sense if you can get the whole room and you just have to bring your own personnel to kind of run the equipment. That's
Yeah, and
pretty.
the best part of it was the Panera down the street would give the guy that ran the place all of their day old bread and like
Oh,
pastries. So whenever you go there, it would be this fridge just fucking packed with
stacked.
pastries. So
That's
you just like
awesome.
pig out and like just carb load.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you recorded a majority of your early stuff there. Are you guys signed to a label
We
or
are
just?
signed to a label. We signed back in April to a label called Spine Farm. It's a subsidiary of UMG.
Oh, cool. Okay, tell
Yeah.
me about that. And that was well, we'll get to that point. So you guys put out that the Weapons EP, and you were touring where mainly around the East Coast.
Yeah, we put out the Weapons EP. We were touring around the East Coast, just little small things. And then after the Weapons EP, we wrote this song called Sound and Silence.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first thing we released since Weapons. And we decided, like, hey, let's just throw some YouTube advertising on it just to get it some views. And so
Mm-hmm.
Jack and I were sitting in his room just being stupid and like trying to figure out like for $100 where we could reach the most amount of people, like what
Right.
country. We were looking up like Indonesia and like Thailand and like
Yeah,
and
sure.
then we just happened to look up Mexico and it was the biggest reach out of all of them. So we were like, fuck it, let's do it. And like we threw we threw $100 down. And then it ended up being like the best $100 we ever spent because a guy named Joe who ran a YouTube channel called Pepe Problemos down there
Huh?
was kind of a big YouTuber, like a blown up YouTuber in Mexico. And he saw the advertisement and clicked on it and loved the song so much that he shouted it out on his YouTube page. And
Wow.
so pretty much overnight, we got this like small following in Mexico. And we were like, holy shit, this is wild. And, and we reached out to him and turns out he had a band. He had this like pop punk band that he had down there. And he was like, yo, if you guys ever want to play a show, just let me know. I was like, dude, let's set something up for like maybe like February or something. He
Uh-huh.
was like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. And so like a few weeks went by and every single day we were like, we need to buy those plane tickets. We need to buy those plane tickets. We got to get down there, dude. We can't like let this slip away. We got to go do something about it.
Mhm.
And finally I was sitting in bed one night and I was just like, wait, why haven't I bought the tickets? Let's just get them. Like we have some money from like some syncs that we've gotten. Let's just do it. And so I just bought the tickets. I was like, and I messaged Pepe or Joe, and I was like, dude, we're coming down. Like, here are the dates. And he was like, oh, fuck, you're actually coming. And you're like, yeah. He was like, okay, sweet. I'll set something up. And we went down there and it was one of the best experiences of it was life changing.
Where did you guys go in Mexico?
Um, those initial shows, I think we only played like 4 or 5, but we went to Celaya, Toluca, Tampico, and no, not Mexico City. Where was the fourth one?
You're,
Aguascalientes.
so you're pretty far down there. I mean,
Oh
you weren't
yeah,
just,
dude.
yeah, you weren't like border towns.
No, 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 no. I mean, we played Baja and a town in Sonora called San Luis, Colorado, and but for the most part, I mean, we've been down there 9 times now, and
Wow.
we've toured almost all of the country. I mean, we've hit every major city except for like Monterey, and we've toured the whole peninsula. I mean, when we first moved out to California, I felt like I had more friends in Mexico than I did in California. I
That's
mean, for even
interesting.
for the couple of years that we had been out here. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it cool going down there? I mean, you obviously had you ever been to another country before? Or was that kind of your first abroad experience?
I mean, like when I was younger, my dad was a captain at Delta, so he was a pilot at Delta. So
Oh, cool.
he flew transatlantic for like most of my childhood. So,
Oh,
like every year or every other year, we would fly non-rev, which basically means if there's a seat on the plane, you get it.
mm-hmm.
But if somebody buys a ticket, you get kicked off. So it's like a
Right.
really annoying, like risky way to fly because you can just get stranded places.
Right.
But
But it's
my
free.
yeah, exactly, but it's free. And my dad had been flying since 1987, and all of the listing of like how you get bumped down is based on seniority.
Mhm.
So, I mean, he had been flying for like 30 years.
Forever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And or like 25 years. And so it was pretty easy to get flights at a certain
cool.
point. But like, yeah, when I was young, my dad would occasionally fly to Germany and we'd go with him and stuff like that. So I've been
cool.
abroad, but I'd never been to Mexico.
Oh, okay. That was your first experience in Mexico.
Yeah.
I was just curious if like, if that's well, I mean, it was probably your first experience or obviously playing in a different country. Was that like getting all your gear down there? Was that a whole thing? Were you like worried about that?
We
Like,
were, but I mean, everybody in Sputnik's Joe's band, and they're so unbelievably hospitable and just so kind to us every single time we go, and they're just like amazing people, and they just were like, you can backline everything on our
cool
rack, and we were like, okay, cool, awesome. So all we had to do was bring our guitars.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Wow. So that would happen pretty quickly, or not like how long into the band was it when he shared that? Was that pretty soon?
Yeah, it was like a year after I joined the band, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you said it was after Weapons came out?
It was after Weapons came out, and we had started writing songs again, and we wrote this song I remember coming up with the main riff like in my living room, and then we would go to this place that we called the Mash Palace, which was where Will lived, and it was like this really old house out near Brighton, and it supposedly was like where John F. Kennedy would go have his like affairs and stuff like that. And I don't know if that was ever true, but we would go down in this basement that they had there and we would just practice. And I think we wrote the whole song there over like a few month period. Yeah.
Nice. And then after you guys released, after you're doing the single Sound of Silence, you guys put out the Dempsey, is that an EP?
Yeah, we put that out in 2016. That was when I feel like we started to really like find our sound and what like made us, because that was, by that point we had the electric guitar, or sorry, the fretless guitar introduced.
Okay, so that's when it came. I wasn't sure if that had been introduced prior, if it was on the Weapons record. So that's the first time the 7-string makes an appearance on the album.
And the first song we ever wrote with it was a song called Low Air, and it's our biggest song to this day. I mean, it's got like 2 million streams on Spotify, which in the grand scheme of things is not that much, but like
that's
for
a
us,
lot.
it's like, I mean, it was kind of a slow grower because we were like, this is something new. Like there's nothing out there that sounds like this. And it's kind of proven to us that like, that's the sound that we really discovered something there. Cause to this day, it's still our biggest song.
And that's, you said you discovered that's where the sound kind of formed with that 7-string guitar from there.
Yeah.
And with that, like, was were you able to like implement that into your live show? Like, was that hard to do with that first record with that instrument on it?
We didn't know how it would really go because on top of it being a fretless guitar and you having to use your ear for intonation, it's like it's also just a shitty guitar. So it's like
Uh-huh.
none of the intonations crap on it. So you can't really look at the frets to like figure out the notes. It's kind of like G is somewhere around the third fret, but you got to figure that out.
Yeah, right.
And
Okay.
it's become harder as we've become more developed with the sound because we're playing more and more complicated things on there.
Mhm.
And so we're actually investing in a fretless guitar, like a custom one.
Oh, so you can
Yeah.
retire that one.
Yeah, so we can retire that one forever. It's gonna be sick. I'm excited about it. Our guitarist is talking to this one of our friends, this guy named Hunter Martin that works at I can't remember where he works, but he's been making guitars for a few years now for this like really nice guitar company. And we're kind of talking to him right now. We'll see if it happens, but we're kind of talking to him about doing like a custom like a 7-string fretless, but with like a Stratocaster look to it.
Oh,
But we want it to
cool.
have yeah, but we want it to have still that kind of like we don't want it to sound like a Strat. We want it to sound like more like a cross between blues and metal, kind of like that heavier humbucker
Sure.
rock sound. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. That's exciting. And they're going to are they going to try to model it to get the similar sound that your other guitar has? Or is it just,
Yeah, I mean, if I think that if it comes out, I think the best tone we could possibly hope for is like something that like just rides straight in the middle, like a PRS or something like that. That's kind of like I think what we're hoping for is a just a very versatile sound.
that's cool.
We don't want it to
That's,
sound too specific, like a Strat or a
yeah.
Telly.
Well, with the 7-string, the original one that you guys still have, is that did that show up on the next recordings after it? Has that been on every record since
Yeah, and it's really in the new
in the new
album
one?
coming. Yeah, there's a lot of fretless songs in it, and I'm pretty fucking excited for them.
That's cool. That's cool. So you had another record in between the debut album coming out and the Dempsey EP, right? Or is there a couple
No,
more? Oh
we've
no.
just done nothing but singles. I mean, we've still been releasing songs constantly, but it's all been singles ever since Dempsey. And I guess that's what been like 4 years now since we released that. And so I think the majority of our music now has been singles.
Oh
Just
wow. Okay.
yeah.
And did so you just recently got signed then to the
Yeah.
late?
Yeah,
Okay.
we recently just got signed. And
So
go ahead.
so with those 4 years prior to getting signed, like after Dempsey came out, what were you guys just touring a whole ton? Like what were you guys doing? Like what was the band up to at that point?
Um, we let's see, we were doing our Mexico thing,
Mhm.
and after we graduated in 2016, well, me 2016, the rest of the band 2015 because I'm a slacker, but like we just decided that we needed to go to California because that's where the music hub is, you know. I mean, so we thought, and it ended up being true, but like it was just we needed to go to LA, and so June like 15th we decided we wanted to go to LA, and then like July 25th we drove out, and it ended up being a fucking disaster because
Oh really?
yeah, because we got halfway, so it was just Jack and I driving across, and his grandparents gave him their 1999 Ford Taurus, like this just
Yeah.
old station wagon, and we loaded it up to the brim
Did it
and
have the
started.
digital speedometer on it in the middle?
No,
Oh,
no,
my
no.
buddy had a Taurus. I don't know if his was a 99. This was like when I was in high school. And instead of having the speedometer, that goes this way, it was a big digital like number. So it would tell you exactly how fast you're going, like on this huge digital clock
Oh,
in the middle.
the luxury of
Yeah.
2000.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Yeah. The 99 one that I guess didn't have it. I don't know what year my friend's was, but it wasn't
Yeah,
like
no.
some stellar car.
So we loaded that thing up. The AC broke right away, so we had to get that fixed. And then we get halfway across the country. We're in a small town called Beaver Creek, Colorado,
Okay.
and the transmission just explodes. And just starts leaking fuel everywhere, and the car is just smoking. So we pull over, and just so happened that Jack had family friends in this town. And
Wow, that's lucky.
yeah, I know. And they meet us at a mechanic, and they're like, yeah, the transmission's blown, and honestly, the transmission alone is worth more than the car. So,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want to do with it? And we were like, let's just leave it. And so
Yeah.
we got everything out, rented a U-Haul, and just left the fucking
Left
Taurus
the
in a
guy's
parking
car?
lot. Yeah, we just left it in a fucking parking lot and
Oh
drove the rest of the
man.
guy. I don't even know. I don't know what happened to that car to this day. I
I
mean, they were
bet you
probably
that
just like,
mechanic just fixed it and flipped it. He probably just fixed it
possibly,
on the cheap and sold it, maybe.
or he just scrapped it and went out to dinner.
Oh
But
yeah,
like,
there you go.
I still have the plates for it in the back of my car. But we get out to California and we start looking for an apartment.
Mhm.
And we think everything's smooth sailing. Like, okay, besides the car breaking down, like this is pretty fucking good. We're good to go. I bought a I bought a Hyundai Santa Fe while we were there, so we had
Mhm.
something to drive around in. And and after a few days, we start getting denied for apartments, and we're like, what the fuck? Like, why?
Mhm.
Turns out we had been evicted from our apartment in Boston,
Oh.
unbeknownst to us. Our neighbors, our fucking bitch ass neighbors downstairs, had kept calling in noise complaints for like
Oh.
no particular reason. These like neighbors were nightmarish. Like
Yeah.
they would like call us and like come upstairs and knock on our door and ask us to walk with our shoes off because it was making too much noise. Oh, lost you here. Yeah.
Oh
And
man.
and so they were just like real fucking anal retentive, just
Sounds like it.
miserable fucking people. And so they had called in enough noise complaints that we had to go to court. And we went to court. Yeah. And they were basically telling us they were going to evict us. And Jack's dad is a lawyer. So he said, like, hey, like, can you have him write on the it's not an eviction, but it's like a you're not allowed to renew again, and it counts as an eviction, but we're not going to kick you out. You can stay till the end of the lease.
End
So
of
it
the
was
lease,
really
but
weird.
you just can't we're not gonna let you live here anymore after your
Exactly.
lease is up. Okay.
Exactly. And so Jack's dad had said, hey, make sure you put on the record that you admit to no wrongdoing, because that should save you when you go to apply for new apartments. And so we asked the mediator, because the lawyer that was representing the leasing company is a real fucking piece of shit.
I'm sure.
And the mediator was sitting there with us, and we were like, yeah, can you write down, we admit to no wrongdoing? And he was like, yeah. And we were like, cool. So when we're getting denied for these apartments in LA, we're trying to figure out what the fuck is happening, because one of them calls us and goes, you've been evicted from your last apartment. Like, no, we haven't. And so we look at we have the office send over a copy of the agreement we signed, and the fucking mediator had wrote, we admit to wrongdoing on the thing. And we're like, what the fuck? So
what an idiot.
And we're out there for like 3 weeks, just bouncing like friend to friend that we could find, sleeping in the car. And then we're like, we need to find a fucking place. Like, we have nowhere to fucking go. But we had to leave for tour because we were going to tour with a band down in Mexico called Beta. And so we were leaving for 2.5 weeks. So we just parked the car at the airport. And we were like, okay, we'll resume searching when we get back. We've been homeless for 3 weeks. 2.5 weeks will be good. During that time, I didn't have a permanent address. So I had written on my registration that without telling my friend that I registered my car at his house without telling him.
Oh.
And so he starts getting a bunch of mail. And he's like, dude, did you sign something up at the house? I'm like, nah, dude, we're good. I'll talk to you when I get back. And we go down to Mexico. 2.5 weeks later, we come back, and Jack and I are trying to figure out what the fuck we do. Like, we're thinking like, we have no money. We're going to have to go home if we can't find something.
Uh-huh.
So we go on Airbnb, last ditch effort, and we find this place down in Santa Ana that's renting for the month. And we're just like, okay, let's just go. Let's just book that place. It'll give us another month to figure out what the fuck we're doing.
Mhm.
And then we can figure out from there. So we head down there, and our host is this guy, French helicopter pilot in training. And his name was Roman. And we ended up kind of hitting it off with the guy. He was a nice enough guy. And we stayed with him for the month. And then the rest of our band came. So it was 4 of us plus him and his like 8-year-old daughter. in
Oh
this
man.
2-bedroom apartment. And the dude was super cool about it. Such a nice guy.
I can't believe he let all you in with having a kid there too.
Well, he just decided, he was like, guys, like I'm gonna move somewhere else. I'm gonna go, I'm going back to see my family in France, and I'll figure it out from there. But if you guys want the apartment, I'll put in a good word at the leasing office, and we can see if we just transfer it over. And we had kind of hit it off with the woman that was managing the apartment complex at the time, so she just kind of like let us in, and we
Oh,
ended
that's
up
rad.
staying at this 2-bedroom apartment for a whole year. And it was a tiny fucking apartment too, 4 dudes in it. And the way we arranged sleeping situations was we had a couch, and then Roman had left us pretty much all of his furniture, so there was a futon in one room and then this nice bed in another room. And so Nick, our bassist at the time, decided that he was going to make the balcony his bedroom, so he set up a twin mattress on the balcony, and he slept out there for a year.
Oh
And
my
then
God.
Will, Jack, and I rotated off every month. Who would get the couch, who would get the futon, who would get the king. And it was kind of nice because it was like you would get increasingly shittier sleeping situations, but you knew when you were on the couch the next month you were going to have this really nice fucking bed.
Yeah.
So it was like kind of made it all worth it.
That's hilarious. Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys, you make it out to LA, you finally get this apartment, everything's going, and then do you start? Tell me about this new record. When did that start?
So we released a few singles, year or two went by, and we decided like, all right, well, let's start making an album. Like, I don't know how we're going to release it. I don't know what we're going to do in the meantime. We got to make content, but let's just start and see what happens. And so we started making this album, and we released a song, released another song, and then this band called Bad Flower.
Oh, I know who they are.
Yeah. The singer, well, let me back up. So we had heard about them probably like a year after being in California, and Jack and I decided to go check them out at this venue called the Viper Room, and we went and watched them play, and we were like, whoa, these guys are fucking legit. Like, they're really good. And this was before they had really blown up. And so we talked to them afterwards, and Jack kind of hit it off with their drummer, Anthony, and they kind of remained friends for a couple years. But then the singer found a song of ours called Under My Skin on Spotify, because I guess Jack had commented on one of their photos and he checked us out. And he loved the bridge of that song. And then he found this song called CoDA that we written. He got obsessed with it. And so they were trying to figure out, this was 2019. They were trying to figure out who they wanted to bring on tour. And Josh was like, why don't we bring this band? Like, I love their songs. And Anthony, their drummer, was like, oh, I know the guitarist of that band. And he's like, oh, okay, let's fucking do it then. And so, so we ended up going on tour with them last year, October of last year. And that was fucking awesome. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. It was so much fun. And we ended up getting our booking agent, which is also their booking agent, out of that. And we also ended up getting our record deal.
Wow.
Yeah. So the guy from Spine Farm, who was friends with their booking agent, came out to see us, and he loved our band, obsessed with us. And so we hit it off with them, and it was just kind of like one thing after the other. And eventually we ended up signing with them, and they're awesome guys. They're all really driven, and they're really fun.
And that's a rad label to be on too. I mean, they have some Refused are on there. I mean, they have a handful of dope bands. Atreyu, Anti-Flag, I think, has a record out on Spine Farm. Yeah, they have got quite the roster that you get to be a part of. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're really cool.
Was that kind of like that must have been a pretty validating moment for you, the whole band, I would think. I mean, that's kind of what you're striving for, right? Is the record deal and the touring and the big tours.
We honestly weren't until probably late last year have we ever even considered signing, because we were doing pretty good on our own, and we were like, let's just keep this thing independent. Like, we have full control. We're making a decent amount of money off of Spotify to keep this thing going, and like, let's just keep it rolling. But then we realized that we were kind of severely limited in our like marketing resources and our connections, and so it just kind of became more and more appetizing to sign. I'm glad we did.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, with the record, like, where were you guys at were you touring, like, when the world shut down with coronavirus? Were you guys were you in the middle of the record or?
Well, yeah. So we were on our way to play South by Southwest when
Oh,
the whole
okay. I've
shut
talked to a
down.
couple people about that. Were you on your way, like en route there?
We were literally we had just finished the first show of our sort of mini tour to get out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we had shows going out there. We were gonna play 7 shows there, and then had shows on the way back. And it was the first night of the tour, and that's when everything, it was March 13th, everything's just kind of started popping off. And
Uh-huh.
we were watching all these bands like cancel one by one. And I met this girl at the bar, and I was like, I kind of want to keep hanging out with her.
Yeah.
And all these bands are canceling. And I was like, kind of swayed the decision. I was like, yeah, I think it's best we cancel. And it ended up being the right decision because everybody canceled that night anyways. And so,
Yeah.
and now she's my girlfriend. So
There you go. It all worked out.
it all worked out.
How funny. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you didn't end up playing the show, or you guys did play?
We ended up playing one
One-
show, and that
one
was in
show.
San Diego.
Oh wow,
And
you
we
guys
canceled
played
the
where
rest
I'm
of the tour.
at. Where'd you play in San Diego?
We played this place called Soda Bar. I think it's
Yeah.
closed now. Yeah.
I know exactly where that is. Cool spot. Rad. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I like San Diego a lot. I've spent a lot of time down there this year.
Awesome. That's where I'm at. That's where
Where in San Diego?
we live in North County, like
Okay.
North County, San Diego. Rancho Bernardo is the city.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Sure. I don't know how familiar.
All
you
I
are.
know is OB, PB.
Okay.
That's it. That's
Yeah,
all
so
I
we're
know.
like northeast. So like we're pretty much directly east of like Solana Beach and
Oh, okay.
like toward Encinitas, a little north of PB and all that.
It's fucking beautiful down there.
Oh yeah, it's nice for sure. LA's dope too though.
But yeah. San Diego's awesome.
That's cool. So okay, so the new record's coming out February.
In February 12th, I believe. Yeah.
Very cool.
I'm excited. And I think we're going to release probably one more single before we drop the album. And I'm super fucking excited for it. We really tried to make it one collective piece of art that you could listen front to back. I think a big objective of ours was it kind of goes hand in hand of our philosophy for writing and the way we approach music and art in general. And that is that you don't try to control the art. You don't try to be anything. You don't let any of your sort of outside expectations dictate what the art should be. Just let the song write itself. And that's something we've stayed true to since, pretty early in the band. And that's why we kind of have music that kind of ranges the spectrum of rock in general. And this pushes it even further. I mean, we've going into the album, we wanted to make something that people could listen to front to back and get all the vibes that they wanted from it, because I think a big problem with a lot of albums is that you listen to it and about halfway through you're like, or even a few songs in, you're like, okay, I've had my dose of this artist. Let me move on to something else. And because all the songs end up fucking sounding the same because it's the same fucking artist. And so we really wanted to like break out of that and like listen to something that changed so rapidly that you would stay engaged from the very beginning to the very end.
That's amazing. Yeah, because a lot of people are playing the singles game, like just put out one song,
for years.
yeah, and then a song, and kind of just keep the momentum going that way. But that's awesome. You're gonna put out your first record. How about promoting it? Like, how do you guys feel about promoting it with the current state of the world? Like,
honestly,
live
dude,
streaming or like what? Are you
pretty
guys doing?
fucking nice because here we are. I'm sitting in my boxers right now in my living room, which is fucking messy, but you can't see it because I'm pointing the camera up.
There you go.
Not that bad promoting it. I don't have to do shit except for walk into the next room and watch the Starship live stream.
That's awesome. Well, are you guys doing live streams yourselves or not yet?
No, we've been doing, I'll hop on Instagram live every once in a while if I'm bored, but like, we did a live stream with Bad Flower a few months ago, which was a lot of fun. And we're trying to set up some more of them. I think we have one maybe for download next year that we're doing
cool.
at the
I
beginning of
did
the
see
year
that
to kind of
you guys
promote it.
That you guys were on that bill. How cool. I love that.
I'm fucking stoked.
Too. the caption was like started at the bottom, now we're at the bottom, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. We're like at the very bottom left corner of the poster, but we're still fucking on it. So I'm like,
and you're
hell
not on
yeah.
the bottom line.
Yeah, exactly. We just barely made it. Just
You're a
barely
few bands up. Yeah, you're a few bands up from the bottom. So that.
Yeah.
But and then if you take into consideration the bands that are on the bill, I mean,
yeah,
the bottom isn't that bad.
no, we're still above, where we were before.
Right.
At any point in time. So we're on the up and up, and I'm excited about it. Plus, I want to go to the UK just in general, just to have fun.
Yeah, and you're going to play with Biffy Clyro is huge in the UK. I mean, obviously here too, but not to the extent. And System and Kiss, and I can't remember who else is on that show, but it's a gnarly lineup.
It's so cool, dude. It's so fucking sick.
That's awesome,
I'm so
man.
Excited.
That'll be great, dude. I do have one more question for you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Jack, for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, dude.
Yeah, man. So excited. My next question, or my last question, is just if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Write music because you love it. Don't write music for any other reason. Like, stick true to what makes you feel something, and only write something and keep it if you feel it. If it makes your stomach turn and you're just like, yes, then you're on the right path. And if you are an aspiring artist, you are part of the evolution of music. You aren't the artist that you admire. You are taking the baton from those artists and moving it forward. You are on that same plane. There's nobody to look up to. There's nobody to look down to. It's your responsibility to create something new. Don't do what they did in the past. Look to the future. Stop having this reverence for fucking rock of the past. It's all awesome, but it happened. And if you want to keep this genre or any genre that you're in moving forward, you got to look to the future, and you got to say, what did they not do that I feel and I hear that I can do? Bring it backwards.